After Mitt Romney's defeat in the 2012 presidential election, in which, among other demographic failures, he took only 27% of the Latino vote, it became clear to national Republican leaders in a changing America, they need to reach out beyond the party's older, whiter, and more male base. At least it briefly became clear. In the wake of that election, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, a rising GOP star with Tea Party appeal and 2016 aspirations, became the face of bipartisan immigration reform. And he helped shepherd a bill through the Senate this past June. But in the face of an outcry from the right, that bill has languished in the House since then. And Rubio has gotten quieter and quieter until this week, when he told a conservative site that he is no longer pushing his own bill, that the House should instead pass a much less ambitious series of piecemeal reforms. It definitely sounded like the official demise of comprehensive immigration reform, but then this happened. 3 House Republicans signed on this week as co-sponsors of the Democratic bill in the House, a bill that closely mirrors the Senate's blueprint. Whether that will translate into new, meaningful momentum for reform is an open question. More House Republicans will need to face down the same intra-party pressure and put their names on a Democratic plan. And just putting their names on that may not be enough, not if House Republican leadership refuses to put the bill up for a vote. So trying to figure out where we stand here, Martin, what is the status right now of immigration reform and getting it through anytime in the near future?
Immigration reform is the meanest, toughest issue Congress ever has to deal with. It makes Social Security reform look like a walk in the park. It is hard to pass, and I'm skeptical that they can get anything done.
And what makes it so hard to pass? I mean, is it as simple as the Republican base that we keep talking about has its heels dug in on this, and Republican lawmakers are just scared of the primary challenge that comes with it?
Well, I think both sides. I mean, remember in 2002, the Bush administration sent an immigration bill up to the House, to the Hill. And you had a Senate version passed and a House version passed. They never even appointed the conference committee because it was 2002. And everybody, each side wanted to use it against the other, this issue, in that election. And real people get hurt. This is what's got to stop. We got to start thinking about not politics, but policy.
But we've seen the story but also later in the Bush administration, the story was there was a real bipartisan push for immigration reform that right. It was sort of the beginnings of the Tea Party in hindsight that we saw in 2006.
Well, I was at Congress in 2006 and 2007. We had passed a bill out of each house, and there was no way to reconcile it. But look, the Democrats held off on a discharge petition. Now they're putting it forward because the Republicans haven't been able to come up with a product. And you're finding one Republican, another Republican, another Republican. You'll have a few from these swing districts. Republican moderates were just cut out to dry, left out there on this government shutdown. They're paying a price for that. They've got to do some makeup.
So what is, like, Dave, what is behind? So we have 3 Republicans who sign on with the Democratic plan, which is like the Senate plan. How do we read this? Is this just Republicans who want to be able to tell their local newspaper, oh, yeah, see, I put my name on it, and that's it? Or are these Republicans who are willing to go farther than that and maybe eventually sign a discharge petition, something like that? How meaningful is this?
Well, these are Republicans whose districts have enough of a Hispanic vote to endanger them if they go against this, or if they're seen as joining the Republican effort to stop this bill. Jeff Denham's in California, where there's kind of the runoff primary, so he has unpredictable fate unless he gets Democratic votes. I don't see Republicans worrying about them starting a trend. Honestly, the thing that made me think immigration reform has another chance is that you saw Lindsey Graham come out this week demand more Benghazi interviews, and Lindsey Graham needs to have his yin and yang in balance. He needs to have something he's going after the administration tooth and claw on while he's working on something that's going to make the administration look good.
When he's about to compromise, he calls for impeachment, or is that the basic?
Don't forget that we went down this road. I was in Congress in the 1980s when we passed Simpson-Mazzoli.
86 reform.
And it was a big flop. And a lot of people remember, well, we tried to legislate on this subject. We had a hard time getting anything passed. We ultimately got it passed, and it didn't solve the problem. I think there's a lot of historical memory here. And if I were still in Congress, I'd be for immigration reform. I think it's the right thing to do. I think there is a lot of resistance.
Well, let's play. This is what Marco Rubio, we talk about him sort of really backing off this week. That was the big news. Let's just listen to what he had to do. This is how he explained it at the start of this week.
I also don't think it's realistic to believe that the House is just going to take up and pass whatever the Democrats in the Senate are demanding. And so I think that there are many things on immigration that we can agree on, and I think we should move on those and make progress on those issues. And there are a handful that we have no consensus on in this country yet, and those issues may have to be, delayed at some point until we can reach a consensus on how to approach them.
If the House does nothing on this thing, it's going to come back to haunt them in the midterms. Right now, the midterms are their oyster. You're looking around at a great Senate lineup in terms of picking up Senate seats. They traditionally pick up seats in the House. But if the House becomes the issue, you're going to wake a sleeping giant here with the Hispanic vote and immigrant votes in general. The Republicans at least have to be forward. They don't have to get a loss, but they're going to have to pass a work product that's seen as not anti-immigrant.
Well, and that's why the Rubio thing seems so significant. It's because if Marco Rubio doesn't feel safe being associated, like he sort of took a step out there at the end after the last election when it was like, hey, this is where the party wants to go now. It's seen the error of its ways. And now Marco Rubio, you can see the political calculation. I'm going to lead them there. And now he's retreating a year later. That it tells you, to me, the Republican Party is not at all different now than it was pre-election 2012. And maybe the attitudes have hardened even.
Well, it's not a good sign. I agree with you. But on the other hand, he's a pragmatist. And if he's saying, look, we can get some things done and at least move this forward a little bit, that's better than nothing.
Remember, Rubio is a young, still inexperienced United States Senator. And there have been a lot of fits and starts during his career so far. This is a guy who hasn't quite figured it out.
And what Dave, this idea of the piecemeal solution, also, is there any... Would Democrats be interested in that at all at this point, or is it say we want a comprehensive plan or we want nothing at this point?
They're not interested in piecemeal. And when conservatives who want this bill talk about Rubio, they try to say he was going for a nuance. He was trying to say that the House needs to move first. I asked him this on Tuesday, I think. He just said, look, my position is the House needs to move first. You can't have the Senate pass a bunch of piecemeal bills that get conference. That you need to see what comes out of the House first. But no, until it is proven completely that... I think maybe what they need to see is that Paul Ryan bails on this. One of the hopes they still maintain is that Paul Ryan, who maybe wants to run for president, who certainly wants to balance the budget at some point, still wants an immigration bill that's serious enough to do that. And so they're not going to piecemeal yet.
Members of Congress only want to vote once on this subject. It has to be a comprehensive bill.
Okay. What do we know now that we didn't know last week? Our panel will tell you right after this.